Sit down with the Mazinyis. Welcome. And it's very important that I speak to Captain Obet Mazinyi. Yes, we know that you have 40 plus lustrous years in there. But we also know that at the end of the day, you are also just a man. You're a human being, you're a dad, you're a husband. And I really want to get into the importance of having a support system. There's no doubt that you were there through it all. But before we get there, what do you call Captain Mazinyi at home? Like, what do you guys call each other?
Um, Obet, actually.
Mm.
Yeah.
I call a hot chick. I'm here, by the way.
You've got six children
Yeah.
together,
6 children.
and they are all over the world, and we'll get into that. But what activity do you guys do without the children that you really enjoy?
Um, we've always been friends without the kids. I've been with him since I was 22 years old, and I just turned 61. So we've been best friends. So we actually, I mean, people think we're crazy, but we still talk on the phone for hours. So I think a relationship works better when we both know who we are, confidence. And I mean, being married to a pilot is not easy, but I think we both had to understand what our roles were in the marriage. Mind you, I moved to Hong Kong. We were not married when I moved here.
No.
Um, I visited and I stayed. I never left.
For 30 years.
And then,
We lived in sin for a year.
is this working? I don't think it's working.
Share the mic. Let me just check. Just take the mic for now. I need to share the mic so we can hear you, hear both of you.
It's working.
Is it three? Is this sound fine? Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's more compatibility. And I think I understood the role of being married to somebody who traveled. So I had to give up my career or life, so to say. One of us had to be at home. That's the only way it was going to work. I think you do see in this industry a lot of pilots are divorced. They're on first, second, third marriages. And I think living in this place, I mean, I moved here, I was very young. He traveled. We actually moved to Discovery Bay.
Discovery Bay.
And Discovery Bay had just started. There were actually maybe 3 towers there. When we moved there, I knew nobody, but I'm a Gemini, so I make friends very easily. So he worked, and I understood that I had to be the stability for the family. So I was happy. I loved shopping. I loved, being the stay-at-home mom. When the kids came along, one of us had to be home because he flew a lot. And I think a lot of times with a marriage, I mean, I think for us to work for 35 years, somebody had to step down. And I think financially, the best decision was for him to go to work while somebody stayed home because we didn't want our kids to be raised by helpers. And obviously, when you've got a pilot, he's never home. He's never home for 3 days or 4 days. And if I had worked, then I wouldn't have been home for the kids.
And you also lived in different parts I mean, I know you lived in England for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in England before. Even when I met him, I was living in the UK. So then I moved here and lived in Hong Kong.
I'm just trying to figure out, which country shaped you as a Mazinyi's, challenge you in a sense that has I guess, brought this product that we see now?
I think Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I think when we moved here, we didn't know anyone. I didn't have friends. I learned to. We lived in Discovery Bay, so I would sort of go to the what is it, the center, the
What's the Discovery Bay?
plaza, the plaza. Everybody kind of hang out in the plaza, and I learned to go to people and say, "Hi, my name is Percy." Do you know, I made friends because otherwise I would know nobody. Because he was gone for like a week, and back in the day, I think you used to go away for about 10 days. 10 days, you'd be gone. So I learned to make my own friends. I learned to be independent. Well, mind you, I've always been independent. So I think Hong Kong shaped us as a family because it was just us. It was just about us. We didn't have any family. We didn't have friends. The family we had were the friends we've made. We were the only black family. Actually, when we first moved to Hong Kong, I would like to say in Cathay or in Hong Kong, we were the only black couple. Our kids, we lived in an area where we were the only black people. So people remembered us. You would walk in a supermarket, they remembered you because there wasn't anybody that looked like us. So it was very, very important for me to always be at my best behavior, or I always made sure the kids looked good because people always have a perception. So, they would always, you'd walk in a supermarket. Sometimes I wouldn't have enough. Maybe I would have forgotten my purse or something. And I'd say, "Oh, do you mind if I come back later?" And they'd say, "Yeah, yeah, sure." Because we were the only people.
They'll find you.
And they'll find me.
I
You know.
remember, I remember saying to some friends of mine, this was early days, around 95, Cathay, and I said to them, in fact, I remember we were actually in LA, and I said to the guys, "Let's do a runner." And all my friends said, "Obet, they're going to remember you."
We were remembered. I mean, everybody knew who we were. So even in the years we lived in Discovery Bay, everybody knew who we were. We moved to new territories. In our complex, we were the only people. So anybody that looked at us that got to the main gate, they automatically knew where they were going. They would always say, "Oh, you're going to 112," because, that's what they knew.
In where we lived in Hong Kong, it was very Cathay when I first moved there, and then she joined, and we moved to Hong Kong, and the majority of the people who lived there were Cathay because Kai Tak was still in operation. So Hong Kong was perfect for Hong Kong, Sai Kung were good. Clearwater Bay, all those areas were very Cathay people. And when we moved there, we were the only black people in the estate. I remember that. Yeah. And a lot of the people there were ex-Royal Air Force or Royal Australian Air Force. And we moved into a smaller unit when I first went there. And there were all these senior people, Cathay people. And yeah, it was very different.
Right.
But so we had each other. We then had to really make sure that we were together all the time.
What is it, as parents, that you had to instill in your children to firstly adapt to this situation that you're in, where you don't necessarily have representation? There aren't people that look like you. They don't have people that look like them. What is that you had to instill in your children, rather, that they had to learn from an early age that is actually working for them right now?
I think it's a very difficult question or anything. They didn't know any different. To them, they were just people. They were born, they were babies when they were here. So they were not like us who could tell the difference. Children don't know anything. They don't see color. They don't see the things that we see. So to them, they were just one of them. Actually, the last two of our kids were very Asian. They loved the Asian food. I mean, Naki and Tammy, they were so Asian even today. They are so Asian in everything, their mannerisms, the food they eat. So, I mean, the only thing I can say is it was only later on, maybe other kids would probably mention about the hair. And when they go swimming, and they'll be like, oh, how come your hair is a little bit nappy? You know, things like that. And I remember my younger daughter, she always wanted to have braids in her hair. She didn't want to have her hair natural because all her friends had long hair. So we kind of got to a point where we decided, you know, maybe when they get to about 11, they can go to the UK for boarding school, because then in the UK, they can go to schools where they can be around people that looked a little like them, because they were the only black kids in the school throughout the whole sort of primary thing. So anyway, when they got to 11, they went to boarding school in the UK. But when they got to boarding school, they still didn't feel they had to be friends with people that looked like them. Do you know what I mean? Because they didn't see what, they didn't see that. So anyway, so they were just, to them, they were just friends. And every time I went to school or to see them at these boarding schools, I would say, are you friends with that girl? You know, they would, and my daughter would say, Mom, you're being so racist. Why do I have to be friends with her just because she's black? So they never did, because they couldn't relate. So sometimes we would go to Zimbabwe on holidays, and they would see so many brown people. And my daughter would say, Mommy, there's so many brown people. To her, there were people that were brown. She just couldn't articulate the color. They just didn't understand that. So it wasn't a problem for them fitting in, because they didn't know any different, because that's the life that they had.
I mean, you are actually, as a family, trailblazers, right? Because you came before a lot of people, or a lot of us are here. And
The OGs.
it's very different, I can imagine, Hong Kong right now.
Yes, yes.
The fact that we're in this room and there's so many of us. It's great,
It's
right?
changed a lot, yeah. Yeah.
So I did ask you about your children, and one of your children is here. And I would like to get a glimpse from their perspective.
Yeah.
So we're taking off the PR, and we
What do you think, Tapia?
You're about to find out the truth, people.
So Tapiwa, tell us in the order of the six, where are you? Where are you exactly? Where you at?
I am number 3 of 6. The oldest of mum and dad's 4. And it's been a journey. Been a hell of a journey. You kind of live in that middle ground of being the oldest, so you're shirked with a lot of responsibility, as dad was. Yeah. But your younger siblings know that there's someone that's older than you, so they're always like, you're not the oldest, so something to deal with. But it's also been, as you say, a hell of a journey, and Hong Kong's eased into adapting to having black people here, and it's not been as much of a thing as it was when we first got here, at least when we first got here, compared to when you guys first arrived in 1988. Yeah, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Tapiwa, your dad has talked about how it was important for him to be, be like, pay attention to details. Remember, we spoke about the discotheque incident. Your mom is talking about how it was important for her, and I understand, being the only person that looks the way she does with kids, for her to also make sure that everything is prim and proper. I want to understand, what's your parents, in your eyes, what have they been consistent about throughout the years?
Better get this right.
There's a lot of tension right now. I think the things they've been consistent with have been work ethic, application, and passion. And I think dad doing what he does has made it easy, because I think a lot of people get told, do what you're passionate about. And sometimes that's not feasible, because there's not an industry or there's not a pathway for you to do that. But when you see it firsthand and it's day to day in your house, you think, holy moly, how lucky am I to see this every single day? But then when they try to advise you about what you're passionate about, you think it's 7 different things, and you guys are giving me a lot of pressure, and I have my A levels in 2 weeks. Like, what do you want me to do? And they're just like, just do what you're passionate about. And I'm like, thanks for nothing. But I think it's also meant that with perspective, as you get older, you get to understand and see what passion looks like. Whether it's a Sunday morning, it's 11 a.m. I'm up late, later than I should be, um, and you walk into the study or walking downstairs, and Dad's reading an aviation manual for a 747-400 at the time, and he's just, I'm just doing security checks because in 2 weeks' time I've got to check, and you think, why are you looking at this now? And he's like, I've got to check in 2 weeks. It's what I'm passionate about. Or it's we're going out to lunch on Sunday, and Mum is dressed to the nines. She's dressed us to the nines because that's what it was. And then you look at Dad, and he's wearing a Boeing 747 shirt that says, "I'd rather be flying." And Mum goes, "Go and change." And he goes, "What's wrong with this?" And his children, being the polymath that we are, have enough information to go, "Dad, you just go and change, please. Just go and change." So I think those are probably the things that have been persistent throughout our lives in terms of work ethic, passion, application, and listening, being able to observe, knowing. And I use the word polymath because we've always been given, especially as Black people, an incomplete map of a space. The map has not been made for you. The space has not been made for you. You've always got incomplete information, whether it's from the vantage point of your friends who are white, from the vantage point in Hong Kong of your friends who are Chinese. You have to make up the picture and determine where you fit in that picture, and you have to do it subtly, and you have to do it in a way that is palatable for everyone else. You can't turn up and be barnstorming and say, I'm this, that, and the other. You have to accept me. You have to figure out ways to do it subtly, and you have to do it from the time that you start school. So I think that's something that Mum's instilled in us, being the parent who's at home more. Sometimes too harsher means than not, especially for me. I was a very stubborn child more than anything. But it's one of the things that we've learnt, and I think it's something that we continue to take through to adulthood, and it's something that I'm trying to pass on now in the profession that I'm in now.
Love that. Tapiwa. Yay. Speaking of t-shirts, how many airplane related t-shirts
I don't have
do
any
you
such
own?
thing. I don't know, actually. I've got, quite a number.
Quite a few. There's one that I saw you wearing the other time in one of your videos that says, "If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going."
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of them.
I remember that.
Is he allowed to wear it to dinner?
No. I've got to tell you this. When we started dating, this man right here loved his little t-shirts that said, was it BA 146? And I remember once he came to the house. This was when I may have been about maybe 19 or so. And he was a captain actually at Air Zimbabwe at the time. And my brother, is like, "Oh, you're dating this guy, he's a captain." But he had this t-shirt and he looked so grabby. And my brother said, "There's no way this guy is a captain dressed like this." So it was always a standing joke, because even his children to this day, they always say, "Dad, now you've got it right." Because he always liked those airplane t-shirts, which we all hate.
I still enjoy wearing them, especially when this lot are away from home. I spend the week wearing my t-shirts, and yeah.
So that's actually Obet the man, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that's not in his CV. I want
No.
to find out more about Obet the guy. We've got a very good friend of yours that's in the audience. And he has quite a few things that he wants to share. But we'll just ask him one question, right? Rodney, thank you so much for coming out tonight at Act House and joining
Rodney.
ABANTUvoices. I do want to, and I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I do want to get a glimpse of Obet. Not the captain, not the GOAT, greatest of all time, but just, your friend. Tell us about, what do you most enjoy about him as a person who's in your company, who's in your community?
Okay. So, first of all, Obet, congratulations on what's been a fantastic career, right? Not many people can say what you've said and do what you've done. So, kudos to you. Okay. We spoke earlier, right? So, I first met Obet. I don't know if you remember. This was in December 2014.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So it's all about Obet today. So we'd arrived in Hong Kong, and obviously we know Persy, and we were staying in a hotel in Sha Tin. It was pretty cold. I think it was your birthday, right? So you and Persy came to see us. So we got two young kids. We were staying in this hotel, and I think we were looking at each other thinking, did we really want to come to Hong Kong, right? It's like 4 days in, and it was one of the coldest winters, right? And I always remember, so we had a good afternoon with Obet and Persy. And I think as they were leaving, because it was his birthday, right? Obviously, it's his big day. And I think he probably detected the, maybe grimace on my face to sort of say it. And I was just like, oh, I'm not so sure. He actually said to me, you guys will be fine. It's a good move. You will enjoy Hong Kong. And I thought, what's he talking about? But to be fair, Obet, that good, point, and Hong Kong has been good for us. So roll on 11 odd years. We live literally around the corner from Obet and Persy. They have been good friends. I've got to know Obet. I'm not a pilot, by the way. I'm in a completely different industry, so I work in construction. So there isn't a lot of common ground in terms of what we do and everything else. But you asked me, what are the things that, from my perspective, from Obet, right? So Obet's been a good friend. I use the word font of all knowledge. I think you use the word encyclopedia, a walking encyclopedia, right? So I think, that's one thing that does strike me. Attention to detail, absolutely, right? And I think, for me, the one thing I've appreciated, Obet has been very generous with his time, and we've had some great nights with Persy and Obet.
We've had some great nights. Absolutely.
So not about flying everything else. We've drank till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and so that's the other side to him. So, they are a fun couple. I think Obet does let his hair down when he needs to. But I think one thing that has struck me, as I said, is you are very generous with your time, not with just your friends. I see it with your colleagues. I introduced Obet to one or two people who follow him on Instagram today, right? And it was quite interesting, right? Because I know him as Obet. And then I rock up to this place today, and there's people who are so excited to see him. And I'm not going to embarrass anyone, right? So I saw someone around the corner, and I said, do you want to meet Obet? And they were like, yes. I was like, that's easy. I know him, right? I'll get you 5 minutes with Obet. And so I did, right? So for this individual, I'm not going to put you on the spot, right? I hope I've made your day today, right? And I've expressed my, my influence though. But I think the point I'm trying to make is, apart from his career, which is a great career he's had with Cathay, I don't think Obet realizes the influence he has, right? So you use the word influencer. He doesn't like the word influencer, but actually, Obet, you are influencing. No. I know influencer, but influential. And I was going to come to that point. I think you have been influential in what you do. I think you've opened up the career of being a pilot, right, to a lot of people. And I think what you've done is you've given them a window into, seeing what your job is about. And for those people who are fascinated with that, I think it's been fantastic, right? I am going to add one more thing, right? So I like cars, I like aeroplanes, right? Carburetor. Different story. But I remember sitting with Obet over a lunchtime, and I said, I just wonder what it's like flying an aeroplane. And he looked at me and he said, would you like to fly an airplane? I was like, can you make that happen, right? I was like, yeah, absolutely, right? And so obviously not a proper aeroplane. So, Obet, I hope I'm not going to get you into trouble for this, right?
No.
But,
No.
Uh,
Yeah. No, keep it rolling.
But
Keep
he
it
said to
rolling.
me, "Would you like to go to Cathay City and go into a simulator?" I was like, "Wow, I'd love to do that." Right?
Yeah.
So he made it happen. Right? So again, I think it's just the measure of the man. So off we went to Cathay City on his day off. He didn't have to do that, but I think he recognized the interest from my perspective,
Yeah.
and so he did. Right?
Yeah.
So, Obet,
Had a good time.
I'm not gonna tell everyone how I think I did.
I
I'll leave that to you, right? I thought I did okay for a rookie pilot.
Yeah.
You might have a different view, but but you know, I think back to my earlier point, the generosity of his time. I think he's a passionate aviator, so I think for that, Obet, I think a lot of people appreciate. And if you look at everyone who's here today, I don't think it's just your colleagues. I think there's a lot of people here who really appreciate what you've done, what you've achieved in your career.
Yeah.
So all I would say is, you know, thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing. There's a lot of people here who appreciate what you've achieved in your career, and I don't think you should underestimate the influence you've had on a lot of people. Influence.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. My pleasure.
And I
my
think that's
pleasure.
something you should cherish in, you know, your future days of retirement. So on that basis, that's all I wanted to say. So Obet, it's been great to know you, and look forward to spending a lot more time with you over the years.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time. And that's it from me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rodney. Thank you so much, Rodney. That was amazing. We've got a young pilot here. Please introduce yourself and how young you are.
Wow. Young is it's a bit of a stretch. Yeah. I've been having a back pain for the past few days. Young is a bit of a stretch, right?
Yeah.
And Rodney, thank you for what you said, but I think I've known Obet longer than you. Yeah.
I think you have.
Yeah. So my name is Philip. I fly the 777 at Cathay Pacific as well. And when I joined the company, I've had a different journey, and I lived my own life. And I remember, I think it was exactly this time 15 years ago, I was in the flight training center, and I was going through tests and everything. And then I walk out of the test, and I see Obet waiting. And he turns around and he says, "You." I said, "Me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you." I said, "Yeah, me." And I said, "Hello?" He's like, "You're from Zimbabwe?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he's like, "Yeah, I've been waiting for you. I heard that you are part of the company now." And I said, "Oh, yeah, great to meet you. My name is Philip." He says, "Yeah, I've known about you." I think it was KK who had, where's KK? KK's in the corner there. He was my mentor back in 2006. And he said, "Yeah, I've heard about you. You're a pilot at Cathay Pacific. Let's meet. Let's have lunch together." So I said, "Okay, perfect. Let's have lunch together." Little did I know that it was a bit of a liquid lunch, and it was at the moment where I realized the first time I had come to Hong Kong was jarring. I'm a boy raised on a farm, and I come to the big city, and all of a sudden, I have this superstar who's asking me to lunch, right? And after a couple of drinks and a couple of conversations, I realized that he's seeing me as just another pilot, somebody who, even after all his accolades, he sees me as not an equal, but somebody who can follow in his footsteps. And I was like, wow, incredible. I don't want any of it, right? It's too much for me. But after many conversations and many lunches, Captain O, Uncle O, as I used to call you, you inspired me and you brought me along to the point where I now realize that we shouldn't hide away, we shouldn't back away from who we are, what we've gone through and what we've been through. And for my journey, I actually have a question, unlike Rodney, right? I actually have a question. My journey has led me to develop a community and a family here. Some of them are here right now, and others couldn't make it, unfortunately. But I wanted to know for you, and maybe this is more for Madam P, how important was a community, or rather a family that you, as you said, a family that you choose? How important and how influential was it for you guys to be as successful and influential as you have been thus far?
That's a good question. Um, I think it's being true to who you are. You've got to be yourself. And I think when you are in a community, I mean, for example, we lived in a sort of like a community where everybody lived in the same area, gated community, put it this way, where there was the school, there was everything was there, and everybody did things together. I was just me. We were just us. So but one of the things that I always felt I needed to do was I always felt I needed to do the best all the time. If I had a birthday party or if somebody invited me to their home, I always made sure I invited them back to my home. I wanted to always not so much fit in, but to be myself. I mean, I remember being invited to all these parties and everything. And I'll never forget this when a friend actually, she was from Australia, and she came to the house and she jumped on my bed and she's like, you know what? You're just like us. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? And she's like, you're just one of us. And that was strange because she had never had a black friend. And to her, she realized we were just, normal, human. Because she said to me, you're just like us. So it was it was those moments that people always reminded you, or because I think in a lot of ways, because Obet was a captain, people were very conscious of how they were around me or around us because of work. So when we're in those communities where it was just the pilots and the airline industry, I kind of was treated differently because husband's a training captain and people were careful with what they said with me, but more accepted. I found we got the invites simply. Sometimes I said, is it because you're a captain that we're getting these invites? But, people were conscious. And I think with Hong Kong, I think it's one of those places. I mean, I have a lot of local friends. And I think I learned that people have to trust you. When people trust you, you become part of them. We live in a village like Taipo. Honestly, I can tell you, I used to leave my car at the local little like shops, and I would say, can you wash my car? And they would, because they saw us and we were one of them.
And when the cops came,
And when the cops came, they would move the car because I'd leave the keys with them. That's how, we're in with these people. I mean, I walk in shops and I can take things and say, do you mind if I try them? And if I don't like them, I can bring them back. And I do, so we've been here for so long. And I was just saying earlier on that it's so hard to leave. Even having a leaving party, we just couldn't do it because we're not leaving. This is home for us. So yeah, it's been, I think we've been accepted. People look at us and even in where we live, the guards, everybody knows us. The girls in the supermarket, in parking shop. I mean, there are times when I can take things back without a receipt because they know me, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been good.
Okay, we have another question.
It's really, really difficult to come across excellency across the board, no matter where you go, no matter which field. These people are a very, very few. And whenever you come across one of them, it is a blessing. But my question to you is, now that you've had all this experience, obviously you're retired, is there anything you're thinking to put in place to kind of lead the younger generation? And I'm not talking about the black generation, the Asian generation, because that's what you're accustomed to, but anybody that wants to get into your field, because you have so much more that a lot of people need. Is there anything you're thinking to get that knowledge across?
as a young aviator, wasn't available. It just wasn't available. Nowadays, people can go on YouTube and so on, and there's so much you learn on there. But if you find the right channels, you'll find that you'll learn so much on that. And my intention is to continue doing that, come back into the training realm and maybe give my knowledge in training as well, continue to do that until I'm sort of tired of doing that. I'm not thinking of starting a flying school yet. Maybe. It just depends. But my intention is to continue sharing knowledge, aviation-wise, whether through social media, doing part-time work with aviation school.
Yeah, my name is Judy, double D, not just one D. I have been into the aviation industry before, so I practically understood a lot of things you were saying.
Yeah.
Because I worked in my country, Cameroon, at the airport for 5 years.
Yeah, you said you worked 5 years at Douala Airport.
5 years,
Yeah.
customer service, security, baggage service, RAM, supervision, all of that. And hearing you talk, I was just filming myself like, is this one of my tutors I had before? You know? It's like you were there in another form.
Yeah.
And I've gone through a lot of things. I've been here, but I've not been here.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the plane, going to Cameroon and back, going to Cameroon and back.
Yeah.
And imagining the things you said.
Yeah.
Now, here comes the question. It's like he was talking through my mind, but I'll put it in another form. After being such an encyclopedia, I know they say in English that put something in writing and most people won't read it. That's the best way to hide information is to put it in writing. But as someone who loves to read, I wanted to ask, do you have a place somewhere we can buy your book?
I haven't written the book yet, but it's in the process. Yes, it's in the process.
And if you don't write the book, can you make an audio book?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, good.
All right, thank you very much. Captain, my name is Dr. Kubi. I have a question that maybe... Where you from? Oh, I'm from Ghana. I'm a Ghanaian.
Hi.
Yes, maybe this question your wife will help you to answer. I have a friend who flies with one of the regional flights in Dubai. The wife was my mentee, so like I'm like a mentor to her. She calls me and she cries a lot. So I want to ask you, I'm glad there are other pilots also here. When she calls, how should I advise her?
I'll tell you what, my husband works with very beautiful women. A lot of beautiful women. And I think you just have to be confident. Just tell her to always be her best. When he comes home, she shouldn't be grumpy. You know, you just have to be confident. And also it comes with maturity. The early days, of course, you're very insecure, you're young. You get on the aeroplane and you see all these beautiful girls who are saying, Captain, Captain, you know, all the time. And you think, okay. And then you look at your husband and you think, how is he responding? But yeah, it comes with the job. It comes with the lifestyle. You just have to go with it. So she should just be confident. Her husband loves her.
A saloon, as they called them in the West in those days. And there's some people in the saloon he wants to take care of. And one of his colleagues says, be careful, there's 3 of them. And he looks at this guy and he says, I'll kill them all. That's confidence. And he walks in there and he does it and comes out. That's what I mean. If you know what you're going to do and you know what you want to do, you do it. Just go there with the mind of top knowledge. Just keep your knowledge way up there. There's nothing that they could possibly ask you or that could possibly be asked of you that you don't know. That's the sort of level I tried to maintain throughout my aviation career. When people said, oh, ask Obet. If you don't know, ask Obet. It's only because I spent my time just studying, reading over and over again, rehearsing and so on. That's just what I did all the time. And she'd say to me, "Why are you doing that? But you know all that." I said, "No, I don't. Maybe I do, but I still need to know it better. That's just know it better. Simple as that."
Hi, Captain. So my name is Simba. I would categorize myself as one of the Instagram fans. Even though I'm Zimbabwean, I found out about Captain from Instagram. So I'm an aspiring pilot, and I think one thing I can really agree with what you said is someone who really gives his time. As I remember, I sent you a message. You probably don't remember, like last year. Yes, you replied at length, which is what I want to say. Like you really do give your time to the inquiries I had at that time. But my question is, for the next generation or the future pilots or captains, what's one principle you can say that they should have or keep? Because I know you mentioned, like the general said, making your bed, like the things of discipline, paying attention to detail. But is there any like principle you can say that an aspiring or future captain should have? Thank you.
And you need a lot of flexibility and adaptability, because technology is changing quite a lot. So adaptability is going to be the key, I think, for the next generation of pilots. Things are not going to be as stagnant for too long. So you've got to have that level of knowledge to be able to adapt all the time. That's just how the things are going now. Even with AI coming in and so on, you're going to have to be just as adaptable as you can to keep yourself ahead in the profession. That's the direction I see it going. Yeah.
All right, we have two last questions, Captain.
Hi, I'm Tessa from South Africa. What's your favorite airport to land in?
For a lot of us pilots, it was always Kaitak, because if you're coming into Kaitak, it was always something. Yeah, you just enjoyed coming into Kaitak because it was always different. It was always different all the time you came in. The wind was different, the visibility was different, the cloud base was different, and it's just an interesting airport to come to. And as a captain, you always wanted to do the sector into Hong Kong, because it was just one of those, you're coming in and you'd be coming in towards Kai Tak and coming over Kowloon, going that direction, and you can see Lion Rock, and you can see the airport over there. And just sometimes on a really calm evening, when it wasn't dark, you'd look out and you say, "Wow, this is really beautiful." And the airplane is just gliding in. It just, yeah, I don't know. You can't describe it. You just have to be in the airplane to see it. But yeah, Kai Tak was definitely my favorite. The other airport I enjoyed flying into, I don't know why, but for some reason I enjoyed going into San Francisco. It was just one of those, because again, San Francisco was always, there was always some variable that came in, especially in the days when we used to do parallel approaches and so on. They were interesting. Yeah. And where I've said, wow, that was rough. Yeah. Yeah. And these things always happen when you don't expect them. And the things line up in such a way that you don't expect them. I was taking off from here in a Boeing 747-8. We were taking an empty aeroplane to Taipei. We departed Hong Kong at 10:30 at night. It was empty, but we're coming back a full load from there, 135 tons or something, 140 tons nearly, to come back to Hong Kong. And the day before, I'd been training a new captain to become a training captain. So to become a training captain, one of the things you do in the simulator is you re-qualify and train for certain procedures in the right-hand seat, because you'll be sitting in the right-hand seat training a first officer becoming a captain. So the day before, I'd done this simulator session with this chap I'd trained, and the next day, which was this flight, was the start of his 4 sectors where he was going to be flying in the right-hand seat. But the first 2 sectors, I was the pilot flying with him instructing me as the trainee while he sat in the right-hand seat. So one of the things I did in the simulator before we finished, I said, look, we've got 10 minutes. Let me take you up in the simulator, do an emergency descent, because it's actually different sitting in the right-hand seat and you haven't sat there for a while. So he said, oh, okay, let's do that. So we did that, did the descent. He put the mask on and he was looking up here because it actually looks very different when you're sitting in the right seat with everything up here, when you're used to sitting in the left seat looking over there. So I just did this as an aside. It wasn't part of the script of the simulator. But the next day, just before we, every flight before I took off, I always ring the missus. I say, hi, we're just about to close doors, pushing back in 5 minutes, talk to you later. All the time. You know, once or twice I've missed calling her, but I've always sent a text, and immediately I land to say, sorry, I couldn't call you because there was so-and-so happening and so on. But throughout my career, just before departure, before we close doors, I always call and say, hey, just closing doors now, on our way. Just a standard thing. So I called her, and we had 2 dogs in Zimbabwe, Ridgebacks, and one of them fell ill, and it died on this particular day, that night. And she called me just before we closed doors, and she said the dog was called Louis. She said, oh, you know, Louis died. And my heart just sank. And so I was already slightly, you know, distressed that now we'd lost our dog. This was in Zimbabwe and so on. And we pushed back, took off and so on. And in the climb, we went up, because we were empty, we went up to 41,000 feet. Now at 41,000 feet, the cabin altitude of the airplane is already nearly 7,500 feet or so. So the cabin started to climb, and at about 8,500 feet, we got the amber light saying the cabin was climbing. I was the pilot flying, so I said to the chap I had been training in the simulator the day before, I said, get onto ATC. We just crossed over into Taipei, ATC. I said, get onto ATC, tell them we'd like to descend. The plan was obviously we descend and catch the cabin before it goes above 10,000 feet, where you'd have to put your masks on. So he's trying to get a word into Taipei, and Taipei is talking to another aircraft, and there's all these airplanes, these new age pilots that keep saying confirm, and they say, oh, confirm, they tag on confirm to each transmission because they think that's standard 80. It's just so irritating. Anyway, he's trying to get a word in. Eventually, he gets a word in, but as he starts to transmit, the cabin hits 10,000 feet, and the alert in the cockpit goes, dee 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 dee. So he stops transmitting, grabs the mask, we put our masks on. And then he gets back and we do all the initial procedures, and he tells ATC we need to descend. So ATC now is free, and they give us descent. And we descend to, we were at 410. They told us we could descend to 32,000 feet because there was traffic below, which there was. So we start descending. I start the descent. So we start descending. And remember, all this has happened with me and my mind and the dog at home and so on. That's why I say things happen at the wrong time. So you've got to always have your mind in the right place all the time, because that's what will happen.
Okay.
And we descend, and eventually we get into Taipei, and we land, and uneventful. But I remember saying to myself when I landed and we parked, I thought to myself, when something else distracts you, that's when you've got to really pay attention. Because I was distracted with the dog dying and all this, and that's when this happened, and I just happened to be alert enough to just put that aside. And these things will happen. So just stay focused, put it that way.
Country, or actually to retire, there's a lot more, I think, the exchange one can actually look into, right? Hong Kong is talking about the cultural, the sports, the diversity, right? Tourism. I see you beyond a pilot. I see you beyond what we can do. I think there's a lot more as a leader can influence. So what is it that you have in mind beyond aviation to influence that category? But outside of that, what do you have yourself vision in the next 5 years, please?
For me, I look at my country, Zimbabwe, and I'm looking at it and just looking at reports and what I've studied and what I read. Asia went through the period of the Asian tigers. And now, sub-Saharan Africa, in the next 5 or 10 years, is the new tigers. So I'm looking to be in position to take advantage of that. Yeah. Bridging the gap between, Asia. Yeah, working together with Asia and Europe as well, because they're going to need, because the tigers, I would like to call them the lions, are going to be sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, yes.
Captain, it was really such an amazing evening. Thank you so much for your time. As Rodney said, you are so generous with your time.
You guys are generous for your time. You wouldn't be here unless you wanted to be here. So thank you very much. So I know that. Yeah.
And as mentioned, you know, behind every successful person, there is definitely a very successful and strong partner. So,
A
Mrs.
hot
P,
chick.
I heard they call. Oh yes, oh yes. I heard you. They called you Mrs. P, Madam
Madam P. Yeah.
We thank you for your service. And overall, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming through. Yeah, let's have a picture. Because we all are fanning over you, honestly. Thank you so much for coming through, Captain. We really appreciate your time.
Thank
We
you very much for
appreciate-
having us here and having me here to speak to the people that came and anyone else that might will watch your program. And yeah, it will be good.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's have a picture.
Hi guys. Hi guys. Say hi guys.